And welcome back to Law and Crime. So we are going to go back to the case of Missouri versus Nicholas Godejohn. Law and Crime has a very special guest. We're so happy to have you. It's Dr. Marc Feldman, clinical professor of psychiatry at Alabama. Did I get all that right?
You got it all right.
Excellent. So tell us first, Dr. Feldman, what is your involvement or knowledge of this particular case?
Well, I'm an expert in Munchausen by proxy, and so I heard about this case essentially from the moment it arose. I'm not an expert for either side in this case, and that allows me to comment on it based upon my knowledge. I also wrote a lot about this case in my new book, Dying to Be Ill, which came out a couple of months ago. So I feel like I understand the issues pretty darn well.
Okay, so start by telling our viewers, first of all, Munchausen by proxy. What is a definition of that for those who are watching?
It's when a caregiver, and that's almost always the mother, either feigns, exaggerates, or actually induces illness in her own child because she gets some kind of emotional gratification, some kind of thrill from doing it. Typically, it's attention, love, concern that she feels unable to get in any other way. And this is a ready-made plan that allows them to get the attention of loads of people, to get donations at times, but to be admired as sort of the parent of the year. And I think there's a mini epidemic of it going on in that I hear about new cases almost every day.
Okay, so what I'd like to do now is we're going to show a clip of Gypsy talking about her mother when she testified. And Dr. Feldman, stay with us. We'll come back to you. Wow, so she has outlined years of abuse and all of the different illnesses that her mother has put her through, including a wheelchair, cancer, seizures. So we're going to rejoin our special guest, Dr. Marc Feldman, who is a specialist in Munchausen by proxy. So, Dr. Feldman, here's my question for you. Is it typical in the cases that you've seen that the years of abuse can be for that many years and that there are this many illnesses? I mean, good Lord, she had all kinds of illnesses that she just testified about.
This is more extreme than in most cases I see. In fact, I haven't had another case that culminated in the murder of the perpetrator. But these are some of the kinds of illnesses we see a lot. False claims of cancer, seizures are very common. Reports between 6 and 9% of the victims actually die as a result of what their mothers have done to them, injecting them with bacteria, causing toxicity by giving them excessive doses of prescription medications, and the list goes on and on. So I think anyone who would say, well, this isn't really abuse is badly misunderstanding what Munchausen by proxy is.
Yeah, it is terrible to hear about terrible child abuse, including of Gypsy in this particular case. We are going to now watch some clips of other types of illnesses. Let's watch and come back with Dr. Feldman. And actually, that wasn't testimony about other illnesses. It was about other forms of abuse. And she was just talking about, Gypsy was, that the mother smashed her cell phone, her computer, chained her to the bed. So again, Dr. Marc Feldman joining us, an expert in Munchausen's by proxy. So is it typical that a person who is abusing a child because they have Munchausen's by proxy are doing these other types of abuse, like smashing the cell phone, the computer, chaining her to the bed, not letting her leave the house, holding her captive?
There very often is not only emotional abuse, but physical abuse as well, straightforward physical abuse. But most of the victims in Munchausen by proxy are either pre-verbal or early verbal, and therefore they can't communicate their distress, and they can't escape. And so the kinds of behaviors we see in Gypsy's case really don't have an opportunity to be manifest in most victims.
And there's been a lot of discussion, at least in my law world, about how does a caretaker, a mother in Gypsy's case, convince doctors that they have all these illnesses? So is it self-reported? How do they do that?
they often prevent the patient, the victim, from talking to the doctor. And this happened in Gypsy's case. The mother does all the talking. She may imply that the child has some kind of intellectual disability, and there's no point in asking the child. Doctors are gullible. And I don't say that pejoratively. It's just that we are taught that we should listen closely to what patients and families have to tell us as the single best guide to what's going wrong with them. We're not taught to doubt what families and patients tell us. So it takes fairly overt deception that's uncovered before people even consider Munchausen by proxy. It's kind of uncommon. It's esoteric. Doctors may not be taught anything about it during their medical training. I wasn't. I acquired all my information after I was already on the faculty at Duke. Mm-hmm. So this is a disorder that's sort of bathed in deceit, and for that reason, it goes unexposed all too often.
Yeah, it is. This case has all kinds of interesting issues. Dr. Feldman, please stay with us. I'm happy that you're here to be our guest today. The trial is resuming in Godejohn, so we are going to go to that trial live. They had a lunch break. We're now resuming, and let's see who this witness is.
Are you familiar with...
I'm going to sign off for the afternoon, and Dr. Feldman has also signed off, but I'm very excited that Julie Rindelman will be joining as host starting at 3 o'clock. You will have an amazing time continuing testimony in this case, and this is the Godejohn case, and it is a clinical psychologist, is testifying currently. We don't know yet what his testimony will be, but I'm sure it will be interesting. Stay tuned with your next host, and have a great afternoon.